It's time for Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Transformation. Let's tap into your own authentic genius and live the life you desire.
You are now listening to
Join Dr. Rademaker for an enlightened conversation about our brain intelligence, our body intelligence, and our energy intelligence. And now, here's your host, Dr. Bart Rademaker.
I'm Dr. Bart Rademaker, and this is Prescription for Your Transformation. Real people, real conversations, and real success. And once again, bringing you some masterful insights, some foundational insights that can absolutely transform your life. You know, this series is all about tapping into that collective wisdom and creating that space of generative collaboration. What I also liken it into is tapping into that brain intelligence, the body intelligence, as well as the energy intelligence. So I like to incorporate all those things together and to find the coolest people on the planet that can share this with you so that you can relate to them as well in a way that all of us normal people do. You know, there's so many incredible individuals out there that are just, you know, at this high level that we never can reach. But the truth is that there's so much information in between that we need to learn so that we can transform our lives. And this is the whole purpose of this series of Prescription for Your Transformation. And so today, it's about financial intelligence, made easy for you to embrace, to engage, to plan, to execute. And I can't think of anybody better than to inviting Roberto Roman, the financial professional, who's going to give us that intelligence in terms that we all can understand. So welcome, Roberto. Thank you for joining me today, and really excited to embrace your intelligence in financial intelligence, and because it's such an important part in everything that we're doing in respect to this financial intelligence series that you and I have put together. You know, integrating the practical psychology of our approach to money and our personal financial intelligence and our own abundance, but also the specific mechanics, the strategies, the tools that are available to us to make all of that happen. And so this entire series that we're putting together is going to dive into all the different aspects from, you know, planning, from budgeting, from investing, you know, protection, all these different things that normally are somewhat out of reach of regular people's, you know, bandwidth. And so we've put that bandwidth in a way that really makes it easy. So thank you for going with me on this journey that we're doing together. It's all about educating people. It's all about transforming people's lives and really giving people the information that is so easily understood and relatable so that they can begin to implement it. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bart. I'm excited to take this journey with you and everyone who signs on, and it's extremely exciting to discuss and share the talents that you have been given and just be able to pay it forward and help out others. And whether you're in the spot where you want to be, you just want to improve, or you don't want to be and you just want to get better, we're here to definitely help you and give you those tools and strategies necessary to get out and conquer the world if you choose to, or just live life on your terms.
That's awesome. So before we get started, you know, as with all things, we have to make sure that everything is ready to go. And I'm going to do one small adjustment to my videos and everything else, because we want to make sure that we get the best possible worlds. So the first thing that we're wanting to talk about is psychology. And I know in our financial series, our financial intelligence series, we're going to go into great depth into the whole psychology of money, of budgeting, of investing, of planning, and all these different things. But my question for you right out of the gate is this. You know, what do you feel is the biggest limiting factor in people as far as engaging into this important part of their life? You know, whether it's just about budgeting. I mean, you and I know so many people just don't budget. And then, of course, the planning. I mean, even less people are planning. And as we've talked about before, when you look at these uber successful people with wealth, happiness, abundance, and everything else, that if you were to find out that all of them had a plan and that none of them did not have a plan, then that should be a clue for the rest of us. So what is it that holds people back really from taking that step and to go ahead and start planning their life?
It's usually their beliefs in regards to what it takes. One, they're not worthy. It's complicated. It's going to take so much in order to achieve the goals that they want. They won't be able to achieve them with, like, the 50, $100 that they have on a monthly basis. That it's going to take so much more. That is, so it's limiting beliefs. It's sometimes it comes down to your upbringing that, like, the loved ones or the people that raise you, whether it's your parents or someone close to you, that they didn't have success with money or the business that they had failed. So they imposed those limitations on you, and you feel the same thing that will happen. So you don't act out of fear or just pure, just don't, someone tried it and you don't feel your luck is going to be any better. So at the end of the day, a lot of people don't move forward. It's just really out of restrictions. But the only thing that truly stopping them, if I had to categorize it in one phrase, it's just usually them and their thinking, their mindset. And usually most of the stuff is false, but it's fear. What it comes down to, the unknown is uncharted territory. They're going into something that's different, and they don't know the outcome. So sometimes it also comes down to people are control freaks. They know what they know, and going into uncharted territory that they don't know, that they might be told what they've been doing years are wrong, or the stuff that their parents instilled in them are wrong. They don't want to face it, and they don't want to change.
In a lot of my conversations that I have, it's all about what we believe is true, and these are the learnings that we've acquired over time, from the time that we're young children and exposed to the adult world with their experiences, their statements, their beliefs. And so we've incorporated many of these things, and so we always have to ask ourselves first, what are the things that are working for us and what are the things that aren't working for us. And certainly when it comes to a scary part in people's lives, and that's about the finances. And so in essence, most people are just flying blind because they don't have a clue. And so as much as we want to blame our environment, or as we want to blame our parents, for not actively doing that, and I'm one of those because my father instilled into me this belief that I was hopelessly bad with money. Well, actually, it was his fault because I was the youngest child and I got spoiled until I was about 9 years old. And then my middle brother got a little jealous and then he got all the spoiling. But by that time, I was 9 years old and the damage was done. And so I was kind of reckless with money. And so that kept on with me for many, many years. And so my approach to money wasn't a really healthy one. And so people have to understand this is that we all have this blueprint of a perfect life. And if we're not living that blueprint, whatever that blueprint is for you, it doesn't matter. It's yours. And so if you're not living that blueprint, right, then you have to ask yourself, okay, what else can I be doing? Not what's wrong. And that's an important part is that oftentimes we'll ask the wrong questions. Like one of our mentors, Tony Robbins would always say, the quality of life is the quality of questions. You ask a bad question, you're going to get a bad answer. Why am I poor? And then you're going to give yourself all the reasons why you're poor. When you can ask a better question is, how can I make so much more wealth so I can live the life that I desire? What else can I do right now? These are better questions that we need to ask. And so one of the challenges that I see with people is that, as you mentioned, that their goal is too big. Or let me rephrase it. They're focused on just the end point. Well, yeah, it's always too big. And you want it to be too big. As far as one of the philosophers, Seneca, stated, it's not that we fear that things are difficult. It's that we fear that we should fear that they're not difficult enough. And so what that means is we have to think big And then we have to think small. How do we make things easy, implementable, and how can we get the success all the time? Again, this is the failure with many people when it comes to their psychology with financial intelligence. And so it's also about the goal is not the realistic one in this moment. So they don't know how to work at it. And then the how, they get so focused on how am I going to do this? And they don't know. They're not educated in financial intelligence like you and I am. And so therefore they get stuck. And so that again is the purpose of our series. So when you're working with your clients, they come to you for the very first time to kind of explore whether they're going to hire you as a financial professional. And by the way, anybody listening and getting ready for the series, either you have to do the series, number one, and you have to find a financial professional. And Roberto is really awesome. But when you have a new client, what's essentially the first question that you want to know from them when it comes to their financial intelligence, I guess.
The number one question I usually ask is, what are you looking to achieve, and why haven't you done it already?
Wow. Okay.
Um, it, and it gives some insights in regards to one, should I take them on as a client? Are they
Right.
going to come up with a whole bunch of excuses? I understand, like, we've learned through working together is the power of questions, and probably why is the wrong question to ask, but it's why haven't they achieved what they're looking to do? And they come with their excuses, and then my response is usually, all right, so I understand why it hasn't been successful. And the doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. So are you willing to explore with me different philosophies, different techniques, different skill sets that I might have to approach what you're looking to achieve? People, if they're open for it, great. If they're stuck in their ways, then they give me the answer. But it's usually that first interview is usually an understanding them interviewing me interviewing them, because it goes both ways. Like I might not want to take them on as a client because of they might be a bigger headache or something. So it definitely goes both ways. But those are the two key questions that I usually ask, and then I just sit back, be quiet, and let them talk. And they usually go on different topics and they tell me everything, and then I extract what's necessary, and then also I help them put their goals together, because by asking those questions they continue to talk, and then it's like, all right, is it safe to say these are your goals? And they're like, huh, I never thought about it like that. Rather than saying, hey, they're looking to purchase a house, be like, all right, so you said that you would like to purchase a house on the beach, blah blah blah, all this stuff. So it's getting clear and precise with their goals. But to answer your question, those are the two key questions I usually start with.
And that's an often a question that people just spend no time on reflection. And one of the insights that I got, from Warren Buffett as he was talking to Bill Gates was, and this was a pivotal time in Bill Gates's life and his business, is taking time every week or perhaps even every day just for personal reflection as to, where am I at
Mm.
right now? What am I not seeing? What am I not doing? What am I missing? What do I really want? And so really taking that time to just get connected with yourself, to ask the tough questions, because I'm sure, what you're going to have to do too, as you take on new clients, what are the clients that you're not going to take on? And I'm going to answer for you because I'm not going to put you on the spot. But one of the things would be if, people have unrealistic expectations that they're just not possible. And the other one is, they're not willing to do the work. And in my field of personal development, you know, I have to have a client that's committed to show up, play full out, you know, be open, be flexible, try new things out, because otherwise it's not going to work. I'm going to be wasting their time, they're going to be wasting mine, and at the end of the day, they're not going to be happy, they're not going to get the results. And so part of the thing that people will have to do is, look, I have to have a big enough why. And one of the big enough whys, honestly, is understanding that stuff happens. I mean, we just had this pandemic with COVID, and a lot of people are suffering because of that. because they didn't plan for this type of time. They didn't have a cushion. They didn't have any margins. And so they suffered. And this is one of the saddest things about this whole COVID pandemic that people have gone through. And we're going to be talking about this in a little bit more later on. And so there's one, but there's so that's the fear side. And one of our six human needs is certainty. And so and one of the driving forces within us is moving towards pleasure and moving away from pain. And so when we get to focus on these kinds of things, what drives us, then we can get motivated, we get the energy, to move forward. But we first have to be inspired as to what's possible. And so that's our goals. So you have to understand what your goals are, what's possible, and let go of any limitations like people sometimes have, like, well, I don't deserve to have wealth. I don't deserve to have a nice house, because if I have a nice house and a nice car, people are going to be judgmental. They're going to be critical. I'm going to lose my friends. And that happens all the time. And so part of what we get to address in our financial series is a deep dive in some of the limiting beliefs or values that you have that aren't in a real truly alignment with you. And that's going to be a fun exploration for everyone participating in this, as to getting into that alignment, getting into your own personal flow, so that you get to move forward. So that's a really neat thing. So the other part, I guess, with what you have to do is you have to ask the tough questions. And so I'm curious, if you ever ask a question like, what are you ashamed to ask, or what are you ashamed to admit, or how do you compare yourself with others, or do you compare yourself with others with the kind of home that you have, or those kinds of things? I mean, are these things that you sometimes have to dig out, or is this often stuff that people will release to you once they're trusting you?
Even after they trust me, it's always something that I need to dig because most of the time they don't even know that they're doing it. Like comparison, comparing themselves to others or understanding that, they're doing stuff because they want to do better than others or something like that. So it's always a digging process. It's always a process of like, asking the powerful questions that might lead you to a path that you may never wanted to go down. So it's definitely the power of questions, and I'm always pulling stuff out of people because a lot of people behind the scenes they say, "Oh, I'm not competitive. I don't compare myself to others. I don't do that, this, that, and a third." But the reality is, when you start digging deep and start asking those questions, you're like, all right, so I just want to point something out. Can I be honest with you? And they were like, yeah, sure.
Right.
You just point it out and you're like, you said you're not competitive. You said you're this, but then everything you said you wanted out of life is just like, oh, I got to be bigger than this person, or like, better than this person. And it's be like, it's just an observation, because if you're trying to compare yourself, that's not truly what you're after. You're just trying to be better than someone else. So it's really getting fine tuned on their goals and trying to meet the expectation. Because one of the key questions I also ask is, all right, let's say our first year working together, you had someone ask you this question, how would you complete it? I loved working with Roberto because, and it's like, it helps me meet their expectations in regards to what they're looking to achieve. Because sometimes people say, well, he got me 30% return. Well, all right, meet expectations. Tone that down a little bit. Not saying it's impossible, but you have to meet expectations. You got to see where people's mindset at, and if they're looking to judge you based on the performance of their investment, not an overall picture that you provided, in my opinion, it's a red flag. And if you're a financial professional, you might want to not take on that client or ask additional questions at the very least to get additional information.
One of the things that I connect with you, and this is why I'm so excited to be going on this journey with you and delivering a product that so many people will be able to relate to, because you're also so approachable. I mean, money gets really personal at some point, and
Mhm.
whether it's supporting us, whether it's disempowering us, and everyone is affected by money in some sort of way, and simply based on their own psychology, their own beliefs and value systems that either help them or not. But what's important too is that this is just not a mechanical exercise. As a mechanical exercise, it's just not going to work. There is a time where it is totally mechanical, and that's with investing. That's when it becomes more of a intellectual game where you have to leave the emotions out, because that's, when you bring in the emotions when it comes to investing, then you can make some terrible mistakes. But when it
Yeah.
comes to your financial intelligence and how you're going to plan and master your life, a lot of it is about your personal perspective and feeling and emotion about these things. And so, unfortunately, what happens out there, and this is no criticism, it's just the reality, is that a lot of people, that professionals out there, they're just really mechanical, and they're kind of distant as well. And so it's really hard to connect with them. It's really hard to get that to trust them. And so that's what's so great about Roberto, because just listening to the way he talks and describes everything, you can very quickly feel comfortable and have the confidence that you're talking to the person that's really going to help you from a spiritual way. And what I mean by spiritual is your energy and your connection with life, because this is an important part of our life. It's our health, it's our relationships, it's our wealth, and then for some people it's about religion. Those are the four areas in life that people struggle the most with. And so if we can take care of this one, the wealth one, guess what? Everything becomes a lot easier. It's interesting, and whether you like this guy or not, but Jay Leno, he made the statement at one point, money is not a bad thing, but when you have a lot of it, it makes life a lot easier. And so you basically have choices. You have the freedom to do more things. You have the freedom to have the leverage. You have the freedom to have what it is that you want. And it's not coming from the perspective of being capitalist or taking advantage of other people. I mean, if you work hard and you got some great ideas and you're an inventor, whatever that is, I mean, you deserve to be rewarded. So we all deserve to be rewarded in delving into the smart financial intelligence. You are going to get rewarded, and that's an emotion. You get to feel good. And the cool thing is, I mean, one of the decisions I made when I was in medical school, in my first year of medical school, no, actually, it was my third year of medical school. I just turned 21. I started kind of early. So when I was 21, I realized, you know what? I wanted to make a lot of money. But you know what the motivating reason was? Was because then I could help a lot of people and not be, at the mercy of somebody else telling me what I can and cannot do. That was my primary reason. Yes, I love, a quality of life. I love the things that are cool. I love a nice camera, which I'm using right now. Those are things that are important to me, not from a comparative purpose, but I like standards, and everybody's standard is different. But having that wealth gives us the ability to be charitable and to contribute to the rest of the world. And this is one of the other six human needs that we'll be talking about in our series, is to what's important for us. So, Roberto, my next question is this, is that once you've taken, all the information in that people have, okay, let's dive into the next steps. You have a person that's committed to do this, and they've got the clear goals. They've got the big why. What then is that very next step that people need to embark on that you support them?
Well, it's definitely designing a plan. Like obviously you mentioned everything that you ideally have. You need to make sure a value from a financial perspective of value is associated with it. Then you work backwards at that point. Once you work backwards, you put tax efficiency into play to make sure you're doing it the most tax efficient way. You put if it's a goal or a dream that you share with a loved one or passionate about with someone, whether it's your wife, a child, or something like that, you might want to implement some protection management just in case, you know, something happens to you or that other loved one, you can still move forward with the goal that you set aside. If it's dependent upon both your incomes, you want to make sure you approach it in a diversified and a risk adjusted way. So there's a lot of stuff, but once we get that, the, once we get everything in place in regards to your goals and put a monetary value to it, the easy thing is working backwards, because then we put a budget into place to say, all right, where you're spending the money, where do you have discretionary income, where do you have funds available? All right, this is going to cost you to achieve this goal, whether it's retirement, college education, whatever it is for you to own a business. Um, you put that goal, you put that monetary value, and then when you look at the number, it might be like eye opening, like wow, that's how much I need. But then it's my job to say, all right, let's look at the figures to see if this is realistically possible. Because like we're going to speak about in the series as well, it's a compounding interest. Sometimes it's not possible, but when you're working on with compounding interest, it's not only you, it's like the compounding effect starts playing, and then sometimes you create something bigger than yourself. So it's a lot of key things, but I would definitely say once we put that value to it, it's working backwards and making sure all aspects are in place, then doing the budget to see how we could align. Look at your income, look at your expenses, see where we could cut to make sure you could achieve the overall goal without sacrificing the today. Because I like to make sure clients live life today, because tomorrow's not promised. So live life today. You don't want to save for a goal in the future to jeopardize, like, what living life today. So you want to make sure you have that balance, setting money aside to enjoy life today and also save for the future, whatever that goal is for you.
I think it really starts off with the most critical part. I mean, all of it's critical because without each of the different components, you're not going to get there. And one of the things that we talk about in the series is that we illustrate all the different aspects that you can be doing. And by the way, the series is going to be out in the next month or two. So hopefully by let's say end of October, beginning of November, which is a great time because that's the time that you actually want to get ready for the next year. So if you
Yep.
start the series in November, and so Roberto and I are going to do our best to make sure that we get it out by that time. And if it's not out already, depending on when you're listening to this, and making sure that you get all teed up for success in 2021. But the key here is having that plan. If you don't have a plan for life, life is going to have a plan for you.
Hmm.
And there's a really interesting study back in the 50s. It was a graduating class of the 50s in Harvard, and they followed these individuals, for 20 years later, and they looked at the overall health and wellness and happiness and abundance that people had, and they recognized that about 3% of that graduating class had the equivalent of the remaining 97% in happiness and wealth, abundance, and all these different things. And the key distinguishing factor was that 3% had a plan and they executed that plan. So it's not enough to have a plan, but it's a beginning. Beginning at least, that's there. You have a concrete idea, but then you have to implement it. You have to schedule it. And so part of the challenge with any kind of plan is that people have these big ideas. Same thing that happens, at New Year's. Everybody has this big idea of what we're going to do, but they haven't figured out, okay, like you said, how do we chunk it down? How do we reverse engineer it into smaller parts? And that's what you have to do, because once you see that, okay, what am I going to do in this quarter? What am I going to do in this 1 month? What am I going to do in this 1 week? And what is it that I'm going to do in this 1 day? People like Stephen Covey, I mean, they're very effective, in teaching people how to be effective business people by focusing on the number one thing now. What is my number one thing that I need to do to get my big outcome, you know, engineered to the smaller outcome this week? And I think that's a key part. And so in our series, you and I are going to be talking about that. We offer these different templates as to how to begin to structure that plan. And like we talk about, even if you did 50% of that plan, that's 50%, as you put it, that you otherwise wouldn't have. And too many people out there are spending more time planning their next holiday, or planning their Thanksgiving dinner, and no time in either planning their life and anything else. And again, we're going to be talking about COVID and how it's affected people in a little bit. But more importantly is that you've got to decide what life is worthwhile for you. Just don't, get stuck in this rut, whether you're happy in this place or not. I mean, life can be better. And we have to have this certainty, this idea, this and the wherewithal to say, look, this is where I want to go and I can do it, but it always starts with a plan.
No, it always, at the end of the day, the plan is the key thing. It's just like people plan their vacation, like you say, people plan their holidays. It's just so much that people plan for, but when it comes down to saving for the future or something like that, they leave a plan aside and think it's gonna work itself out.
Yeah, it's crazy how that actually works out. So, okay, well, then the next thing is the budgeting. Again, it seems so overwhelming for so many people, and because they think of way too many things. No different than those people that get tragically ill, let's say a heart attack, and now it's like, okay, I got to change my life, and they think of all these things that they're going to do, and they end up doing nothing because they make it way too hard for themselves to engage with. And it's the same thing with a budget, and but share with us, one of the key reasons people don't like the budget. It's going to blow your mind.
Well, some of the key reasons is one, they were told that they weren't good, never good with money. Sometimes it's the association that they have with money. Like I gave you the example numerous of times with my wife and I when we first putting the budget together, and I was like, budget, speaking on the budget, saying different things about the budget. And she goes, the word just doesn't excite me. And then we came back and was like, hey, how about a spending plan? Actually, she came back to me and was like, how about a spending plan? Like, you know what? That's awesome. So it's the words you use, it's association. Sometimes it leads to back to you had bad experience with loved ones if you were brought up in a household that a father or someone like that, or a mother for that matter, tried a business and failed, you automatically think you might fail. So it's a lot of different associations and beliefs that it's really you inherited or you learned throughout the years that we just need to break them. We just need to understand that, hey, any change you make needs to come with change, and you need to create something that's different, and you need to move in that direction. You need to move forward, say, hey, I'm willing to try different things. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. So let's start changing that so we could change the result and move forward and not worry about, like, the things that restrict me. The fact of, I think money is the root of all evil. I feel like, my parents always fought over money, so I never wanted to be in a situation of fighting over money. Sometimes that helps me have me scratching my head, so why you're not looking to make more money. But at the end of the day, I came to realize we could speak on the things that restrict people, but I came to realize every situation is different. I have I have seen common themes throughout the years, but the reality is, I'm pretty sure people might stump me every now and then with something new of why they're restricted. At the end of the day, we deal with it, we move forward, we overcome it, and we get your budget in place and plan for your financial future.
So one thing that I think that is super easy to engage with, to acknowledge, is that all of this can be really easy. And that's one of the limiting factors, including everything else that Roberto was saying about the police, about money, that you're not deserving, that it's impossible, whatever that is. But part of it is that the lack of clarity, lack of an understanding of what it is that you can actually do and how it actually can be really easy. And it works. All of the intelligence, the financial intelligence that we're going to be sharing in the series actually works. And so it's just a matter of understanding what the steps are. So we work a lot with the mechanics. Of course, it's that psychology. So if you're in a place where you say, look, I'm not happy with what's going on in my life, that's the first step. It's your personal awareness. And it's as Socrates said, the beginning of wisdom is ignorance. Said differently, ignorance is the beginning of wisdom. What you don't know that you don't know, that makes the difference. And we first have to, admit to ourselves, look, I'm not where I want to be. Forget comparing it with anybody else.
Mhm.
That can just be, okay, that's standard. It doesn't mean that I'm better or worse than that person that has that particular lifestyle, but that's the lifestyle that I wish to have. And there's nothing wrong with it. That's just, whatever you've acquired over your entire life, that's just you. And so have love for yourself, have compassion for yourself, give yourself permission to be human and just to acknowledge and accept, okay, this is you, not right, not wrong. This is what other people tell you is right or wrong. Well, that's their life, that's not yours. So understanding what's important to you and knowing that you can get there. Everybody can. And there are no limitations. And we all have the same time available. All those resources are there. You can tap into and leverage all those different kinds of resources, and it's super easy. And so in our series, we are going to be addressing all of that.
Yeah, and it's definitely gonna be fun. As Bart mentioned, we're looking forward to being out towards the end of October, and it's covering a lot of stuff from different aspects, not only from the personal aspect, but also from the business thing. How do you apply these from personal as well as business? How do you implement certain things if you're looking to start a business during COVID, after COVID, rejuvenate a business? Some key techniques that you could use to set yourself up for success, because since so many businesses fail before they start, it's like if you, like Bart just mentioned, if you have the wisdom necessary to make an informed decision and stack the odds in your favor, it's well worth it at the very least.
Talking about businesses, 50% of businesses fail within about 5 years, and that really predominantly is because they don't have a plan. And then 80% within about 10 years. So having this plan, budgeting, being smart about that is really important. So COVID has done a crazy thing in our world today. And whatever your thoughts about it, whatever your experiences about it, I mean, it's all real. And I think what's important when it comes down to COVID, we all have to acknowledge that, our experience is our personal experience. It's real. And regardless of the politics behind it, or regardless of whatever that's behind this all, we need to put all of that aside. We have to forget that, and we have to focus on, okay, what do I have to do for myself, for my loved ones, and ultimately, for the greater whole, when we can do that. Those people that have the wealth, hopefully you'll have the ability to help others in need. And that's why, getting wealth is such an important thing, because with wealth, then you're able to do a lot more for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, and just in general. And I find that a lot of people that have a significant amount of wealth, uh, depending on their values and beliefs, they're the ones that are helping, in charitable causes. They're helping with the environment, and we're not going to name any, political direction they're in. I mean, you'll have to figure that out for yourself who that is. But those people that are out there because they've got that wealth. And so COVID is a key reminder for all of us as to, we've got to plan, we've got to budget, we've got to invest, we've got to make sure that we have the margins and the cushions to overcome any kind of crisis. And so in our series, we're going to be talking about, how to protect yourself, how to build those cushions, what kind of psychology. But there's some interesting elements that I'm going to give, Roberto the chance right now to share with us as to what are people asking now when it comes to how to manage this new crisis.
Well, one of the key questions is definitely like, I guess the simplest answer, we'll start with the easy question, is like, do people need to take out their required minimum distribution this year? Based on the CARES Act, the government extended that you don't need to take out your RMD. And I would say, this is just my opinion, the logic behind it, that retirement accounts, all accounts took such a hit that they don't want to require people to take money out when it's down. So to get that off, since it's a key question that sometimes I'm being asked these days, the next thing is like, people have been faced a lot these days with loved ones passing away, and it's unfortunate. Whoever's listening to this and lost a loved one, my condolences go out to you and your loved ones. But throughout this process, people start asking questions, usually when it's too late. Like, hey, should I have a will? Should I have a trust? Like, what are the right things in place? I think Prince was the most biggest famous example that when he passed away, he didn't have a will. And I think the last time I read up on it, his is still going through the probate process. So how to alleviate or how to bypass the probate process, you can't eliminate it altogether, but little strategies and techniques that you could put in place to make sure whatever you want and whatever you want, one, stays private, two, bypasses probate, because you don't want get stuff getting caught up in probate. I can't speak for everyone. I personally wouldn't want, and I don't want for my clients. So it's understanding the process, understanding how everything impacts each other, because like as little as having life insurance, as little as putting a will in place, think you're properly protected. Hey, your estate is not a large amount, like that it will fall into a state tax category. But how will it impact you if you just have a will? Most people don't know this in most states, if not all. The whole probate process is public information. So, like, if you're a private person, you want to make sure that you keep things private. Maybe a trust would make sense. I'm not making any recommendations now. I'm just speaking out my thoughts and questions that I have been asked. Like, most people think about it when it's too late. Like, I dealt with an example in the personal aspect, but also in like, a client that it was a client of mine that, someone got ill, but they were still alive, but they got ill and they couldn't make decisions for themselves. So what do you do in situations like that? Like, you had no estate planning set up. Like what can you realistically do? And sometimes, unfortunately, there some people say there if there's a will there's a way, there's always the answer, but sometimes with certain things, especially in the finance aspect, especially in the investment realm, sometimes it is too late. You don't have the time necessary to make up for lost causes. So like, I know I said a lot. I'll pitch it back to you to see if you have any questions that you might want to ask based on what I was discussing. But those are the key things that have came up in the past months, that people are home thinking about stuff. They have loved ones passing away. And it's like, it makes them think about their situation.
What it really comes down to, and this is always my favorite phrase, what we don't know that we don't know that makes the difference. And so it's the unknown. And so it's always incumbent in all of us to start asking the questions. Part of the challenge is that A, you don't know what questions to ask. Two, you don't know if you can trust the source. And three, well, there's a lot more to three than I'm going to share. And so, one of the exciting things for me, I get to learn, through Roberto. I'm getting to learn some new things that I didn't know of. But what's more exciting for me is that we are gonna be able to share this with you in this financial series, financial intelligence series, so that you then get exposed to the kinds of stuff that you need to begin to look at. And one of the challenges that I find is that in this world of technology and clickbait and marketing geniuses that have captured your attention. I mean, every single day, I mean, I think the number is 3,000 marketing signals that we're getting exposed to. So our brain is saturated with stuff. And so we quickly shut off. We quickly kind of veer away from anything that's too complicated. And unfortunately, some people get stuck on video games and TV and all that stuff just because it's too hard to understand the important things that we need to do. And then, as Roberto says, then it's too late. Well, the thing is that you have to start looking at this, and we've made it easy. We've made it easy. There's just a whole checklist. When you get in part of the series, there's a checklist of things that you can start looking at. And on that checklist, we specify, what some of those outcomes could be. What are some of the benefits that you can have from each one of these? And so right away, instantly, you might think that budgeting is an obvious thing, but I think most people, as you mentioned, they just have this negative sense, this negative belief and feeling around budgeting. Maybe your parents were bickering, when you were growing up about the budget this and about the budget that, and now it's like, okay, I don't want to hear anything more about a budget, and so you're wired that way. But when you then get to be exposed, if you will, when we get to show you, look, these are the benefits. This is what's going to happen when you address this, and so then you can start creating your own big why. And it's the same thing, now with the COVID, with the PPP and the other things that are out there. So many people are just not aware of it. And then when they are aware of it, they don't know where to go. Or they think it's just a monumentous task. And so that's what Roberto has done to help you make it easy, make it accessible, make a shift. We all need a person like Roberto in our lives that will make it easy, but he also relates to you. I mean, he's done a lot of personal development. He's been in that world. He's also a humanitarian. He's out there building homes in Guatemala. I joined him, together we were on a part of a mission. It was a great friend of ours. We're building homes. And so he's just not your mechanics guy. Those are important. Mechanics are an important part of this, but a lot of it has to do with psychology. And so anything else that you want to share that you feel is relevant when it comes to financial intelligence? We talked about planning. We talked about budgeting. Financial statements is a tough one. Investing is an interesting one, an exciting one. And then you got protection. Just share one more thing that you want to talk about, Roberto.
I guess it wouldn't be one additional thing. It'll definitely just be piggybacking on all the other ones. The fact of, like, you have to, the only way you move forward is by moving forward. You have to figure out what's not working for you and move forward from there. Because it's life is gonna pass you by. And if you don't take stock of it and see what's going on and see what needs to change and see how you could achieve your goals, you're yeah, before you know it, we hear the story all the time. Sitting in the rocking chair, you never want to worry about or think about what if. So it's definitely sitting there and saying, hey, budget is just a starting point. Like Bart mentioned, we're approaching different things in the series, investing and all that stuff. And right now is prime time, like people saying, hey, I don't have money right now to invest and the market's down and the market's up. It's like there's if you invest the right way and you're not looking to everyone's looking for the next, you know, hitting it out the park. I can't mention specific stocks because I don't want to get in trouble with my compliance department, but everyone's talking about, hey, I want the next stock that I purchased at X and it shoot through the roof at Y, or for that reason, like triple Z, that it went so far. And and it's important to have different things in your portfolio, but you definitely want to implement in a pace that's one is going to achieve your goal. You never want to fall short. So I, I'm not sure what else to add, but I know we're going to be speaking so much during the series and we're going to be covering so much, but I know COVID was a touchy subject right now that a lot of people are coming me on. And I just shared those topics. So outside of that, I'll leave it to you for additional questions if you may have any.
One of the things that I think is important is that, our financial intelligence keeps on changing over time. And so it's a matter of staying on top of things. It's a matter of staying, involved with what's going on. And unless you're someone that really understands it to at a high level, all those financial reports out there are going to be really useful. But for the rest of the world, it's the smaller things, it's the more accessible things, and it's also that stepping stone for you to go to that next level. And so that's why Roberto and I are creating this community. It's a private forum. It's not trolled by any kind of tech giant or anything else. But it's a private forum where you can start asking the questions and getting answers from the community. People will be able to share different things. We'll get different experts, all that kind of stuff, so that you can then feel comfortable that you're getting that information. But once again, with anything, just the same thing, as doctors, when we give people medical advice, you gotta decide for yourself if is this the right thing for you. I followed advice, financial advice from other people in the past, and they were disastrously wrong. And it's sort of like, okay, well, I made that decision. It's still on me. I didn't do my due diligence. So everything that we're sharing today, everything that we share in the series, it's all about, you got to make sure that you do your own due diligence. And we're hoping that we can make it easy enough for you to, relate to it easily enough so that you get to understand it. You can't change anything unless you know what it is that you need to change and understand that process. Just change for the sake of changing isn't going to help you. And you've got to have that direction. And so we're going to give you all these different tools that will help you stay focused. Okay, these are my goals. And this is why I have this goal. And these are some of the tools. And this is my psychology. This is my limiting belief. All these different things to help you, design and create that plan, and then figure out how to effectively execute that. Again, finding someone like Roberto, I think, is an important part. Find somebody that's relatable, that understands psychology. I mean, they may not have been trained in it, but can relate to you, and will take the time to help you unravel, right, what's deep inside of you, what you really want, because that's what this is all about. It's unraveling the truth that's inside of you that you've kept secret, even from yourself, because of these limiting beliefs that you have. Because, like I said, maybe your parents were bickering about budget, and so budget's not a good thing. So again, it's about making it fun for you, and and making and helping you with that personal transformation. Because I'm all about that transformation, or metamorphosis, if you like. Metamorphosing your life into that beauty that you desire.
Uh, I definitely agree with you. There's a lot of things we've have learned, or I have learned from you throughout the time that we have been working together. So I'm definitely excited to be working with you throughout this project to see what magic we create, because I know it's definitely going to be fun and it's going to be a learning experience, as well as we're going to be able to transform and help so many people. So I'm definitely excited with that.
Very cool. So, with that in mind, whether you're listening to this the first time that we put it out, which will be September 16th, 2020, on my radio show, Prescription for Your Transformation, or when you hear it at any other time, just check in with us. There should be a link in there that will help you get connected with us, and begin that process. Remember that we're going live around November, hopefully 2020, and we'll be building that up. Once you become that member, it's you're a member for life, which is a cool thing. And so I look forward, and Roberto does too. I speak for him right now. We look forward to supporting and helping you in transforming your life. I want to thank you, and looking forward to meeting with you on our platform.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Dr. Rademaker's Prescription for Your Transformation. Continue the path towards discovering your own authentic genius by tuning in next time for more real conversations with real people.